So in my last video, we looked at the dark history of the AAU. We talked about human zoos, the Racist Olympics, the Amateur Sports Act of 1978, how Nike and the AAU partner up, and of course, the three major shoe deals that make the modern AAU basketball circuit what it is today. If you haven't watched that video, you need to go back and watch it before watching this one because it gives context to our conversation today. Link will be in the description. Today, we're going to be looking at the differences between black AAU basketball and white AAU basketball. So before we jump into the topic, let me answer the question every non-black person wants to know before I start this video. Gabe, why do black people always bring race into everything, and what does that have to do with AAU basketball? And that is actually a very valid and good question. And if you're not black, it will be hard to understand, so I'm going to break it down just so you can understand it from the perspective of a minority. And that's really how I want you to think about it. Not from a black versus white, but rather from a minority versus majority perspective. Let's say there's a class of 10 kids and it's recess time and the teacher says, let's vote to find out what we should do for recess. And every day, 8 kids say we want to play basketball and 2 kids say we want to play soccer. So because majority rules, every day the whole class plays basketball. Now, even though the other 2 kids don't like basketball and really don't understand the game that well, every day, because majority rules, they're forced to go along with the other kids and play basketball. Now, I know that's a very elementary example, but this is what it's like to be a minority in any kind of society. You're forced to conform to the status quo of the majority. So as a minority, your whole worldview and lifestyle has to be shaped by the majority. You literally have to see the majority in everywhere you go, whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent. Minorities are forced to see the majority, in this case race, whether we want to or not, in everything we do because we have to assimilate into the cultural standard of the majority. Also, let's not be naive here. We're talking about basketball, where 75% of the NBA is black. Virtually every signature shoe available features a black athlete. The sport of basketball is dominated by black people. However, the business of basketball is dominated by white people. Now, to my black audience, don't think this is just going to be some video where I'm just going to expose all the racist people in the AAU circuit. A lot of the shortcomings of the AAU circuit is self-inflicted. A lot of our own people are setting our young men up to fail, and that was the major reason why I wanted to touch on the difference between white AAU and black AAU. Now, right now, I'm an AAU coach in Oregon. The city I currently live in is 86% white and less than 1% black. So you can definitely say that I'm in a white AAU market. Currently, I coach a team of 16 8th graders where 14 of them are white, 1 is black, and 1 is Asian. And low-key, the Asian is the best one on the team. So while my last video was more research-based, this video will be more based on my experience as a black AAU coach in a white market versus what I saw as a player in a black market growing up in Cobb County, Georgia. Also, understand I will be speaking in generalities, and like I said in my last video, there's both good and evil on both sides of the spectrum. But with that, let's get into the 3 major discrepancies between white AAU and black AAU. In my last video, I talked about how up until the 80s, right when AAU basketball took off, by far the most important person in the recruiting an athlete was the high school coach. But when shoe companies got involved, that all changed, particularly in black AAU. Now AAU coaches are popping up all over the place, and let's be real, some of these guys aren't even real coaches. Really, they're more like team managers. Oftentimes, they see themselves as entrepreneurs, with an AAU team being their small business. Oftentimes, a kid's high school coach is really not important, and in actuality, the black AAU coach has a far different agenda than the high school coach. For the high school coach, he understands that probably 99% of his players that he coaches won't go on to play basketball at a higher level beyond high school. But for the AAU coach, his job is to get 100% of his players Division I scholarships. For Black AAU, the AAU coach is the most important person in a person's life. Essentially, AAU has phased out the high school coach, even to the point where some people believe that high school basketball is going to be irrelevant in a few years. Now, there's pros and cons to the overall development of a player if high school coaches get phased out. The pro is that the AAU coach can actively market the player and get him seen more than the high school coach can, since the high school coach usually doubles as a teacher as well. The con is that it opens itself up to a lot more backroom deals and put the players at risk for getting involved in a situation that could threaten his amateur status. Also, high school coaches tend to focus more on developing the player inside the concept of a team, where the AAU coach is probably pushing more individual stats for his players. Now, in White AAU basketball, it's totally different and can be summed up in an email I just received from my AAU director about the role of the high school coach. Please keep the following in mind. We need to make sure this is as convenient as possible for the high school coach, their staff, and their program. Thus, the high school programs and teams come first. Later on, it says, this is also a great time to watch a high school practice to arrange for your team or for you to personally as a coach to go oversee. That way you and the players can know what will be expected of them when they get to the next level. And that pretty much sums it up. In White AAU basketball, many times the AAU team serves as a feeder program for the high schools. So we focus more on skill development and working with the high school coach. The plays I run in the AAU tournament are the same plays that my 8th graders will run in high school next year. In my system, the AAU coach works with the high school coach to develop the talent instead of competing with each other. Even in spring ball, sometimes the high school coaches and the AAU coach will switch off coaching responsibilities. The high school coach will coach the incoming 8th graders, since rules prohibit him from coaching high school students in the offseason, and the AAU coach will coach the high school team. It's much less of a competition and much more of a collaboration. Now let's keep it a buck. In general, black people are better than white people at basketball. Of course, there are some white ballers, because at the end of the day, the ball and the rim aren't racist. But seeing as how 75% of the NBA is black and every major shoe endorsement is of a black athlete, I think it's safe to say we got this whole playing basketball thing on lock. Now that's not to say there are no great white hoopers. We know there are, and at every level. But basic math tells you that the black athlete sells the most shoes. Now we also got to take into consideration that I live in Oregon, and Oregon is owned by Nike. Every school is a Nike school in Oregon, so that's not even an issue. But I will say that there is high competition for the next great black athlete among shoe companies. And I think that that's because the dynamic talent is a lot deeper in the black AAU circuit than the white one. And let's not forget, it's more than just shoe companies who want to make money off these kids. It's agents, colleges, financial advisors, lawyers, personal trainers, and coaches. AAU basketball is a multi-billion-dollar industry. In black AAU, nobody is worried about the game. In black AAU, it's all about the next endorsement, getting a big shoe company to sponsor your team so you can get seen more. And because you can't pay a player, AAU coaches receive millions of dollars every year to deliver a superstar talent to the right school and the right agent. This is why black AAU is more highlight and stat driven than white AAU. Every kid is trying to do whatever he can to make sure he stands out from the pack. At the end of the day, all these people follow the money, and the money usually ends up in the black AAU circuit more than the white. Now, in the less dynamic white AAU, it's much more skill-driven and team-focused. Without a lot of interference from agents and shoe companies and the allure of a big brand deal, coaches are freed up to focus on what matters, which is the fundamentals of the game. For instance, on my team, when we practice, it's actually a practice. For example, my 8th graders practice 3 times a week, an hour and a half every week religiously with a written practice plan. So between November and March, we'll have about 35 practices and only about 28 games. Compare that to some black AAU teams that may scrimmage once or twice a week and then have to go play 3 to 5 games a weekend every weekend. It's vastly different, and that's because in black AAU tournaments, you're going there to be seen, whereas what I found in white AAU, you're going there for a chance to compete. Practices don't matter, only games do, because that's where the money and the deals are made. It's needless to say, but agents, shoe companies, and their accomplices, AAU coaches and parents, have created a very toxic environment for these young athletes. How can we expect these young black athletes just to focus on basketball or other areas of life when they have an agent or a friend of an agent trying to meet with them and talk to them about their lucrative future? One group of players is focused on getting a scholarship or a shoe deal down the road because, to be honest, their family needs it. The other group is playing a game focused on getting better at it. Again, for all you people who are getting offended out there, I'm speaking in generalities. I know that from time to time a white star will emerge in the AAU ranks, such as Kevin Love, whose AAU coach was paid $250,000 to get him to sign with a certain sports agency. But for the most part, the most toxic environments tend to be around the AAU teams which feature black athletes. Now, one of the biggest causes for this is the home environment that these players are raised in, and this leads to another difference, which is the role of the parents. Now, I think all kids should be encouraged to go for their dreams, provided that their dreams are within a reasonable grasp of their abilities. But one of the saddest things I see in the black AAU are parents pushing their kids to pursue making it to the NBA at a really young age. We take these young boys and get them thinking that all because of how good they are at a game, that one day they're going to be millionaires and take care of their families for life. How does a kid who grew up in impoverished conditions turn down an opportunity like that, even if the chances of that happening are terribly unlikely? And this isn't just happening with a few parents here and there. This is happening to thousands of kids all across America. Parents push their kids into playing over 100 games a summer because they see dollar signs. And the reality is that only 0.03% of all high school players make it to the NBA, and the average NBA career is only 4.8 years long. Parents put the responsibility of making it out the hood on their young son, which really pisses me off as a black man and a parent. To be clear, I'm not questioning anyone's love for their children. However, how do you have 18 years to raise a child and then got the audacity to put the responsibility of financial prosperity on him? That's your job as a parent. If you want your child to go to college or to be financially prosperous, wouldn't it make more sense to prepare him academically or mentally instead of relying on a game? And to make matters worse, you steer him down a path that statistically has one of the highest probabilities of failures. Do you know how many, I was going to be the next so-and-so stories I heard growing up? NBA players are literally modern-day fairy tale myths. They represent less than 0.5% of all athletes, and most of them are broke before their career is even over. Again, a lot of these parents aren't bad people. They're just in terrible living conditions that make it easy for someone with a blank check to take advantage of them. Raising your child in poor conditions makes him more vulnerable to the sharks and charlatans of the world. And I'm not just talking poor financially. We're talking poor mentally, emotionally poor, politically poor, socially poor, and so on. Instead of enriching their kids' lives, they demand that their kids get a certain amount of playing time so they can get their numbers up, not caring about the other qualities that basketball teaches you, like sportsmanship, responsibility, and duty to your fellow man. Now, some parents really do want their kids to do well so they can receive an opportunity at an education. And I get that, but they say even the road to hell was paved with good intentions. So even good intentions, if not mixed with preparation and execution, is flawed because the chances of getting an athletic scholarship are slim. And again, I say you have 18 years to prepare yourself and your children for college, but to rely on athletic abilities which can be taken away at any moment is just a bad game plan in general. Compare that to what I've seen in white AAU, where most parents see basketball for what it is, a game. Again, not all, but by and large, in my experience, white parents for the most part support their sons in playing the game, but not putting pressure on them to make it. I got a couple kids who I know parents aren't the richest, but I can tell that they are just as grateful that they're doing something meaningful with their time. They stay on them about their grades and don't put a bunch of stock in them blowing up because of basketball. Literally, after every single practice, I have multiple parents waiting to thank me for coaching their kids. I'm not saying that in the Black AAU parents aren't grateful. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's a different approach to basketball amongst white and black people. White parents view basketball as a game that their child enjoys and will continue to invest in if their kid shows an interest in getting better. Many black parents see basketball as a financial come up, and then they tell that to their kids, thus getting themselves and their children involved in a business that they have no leverage in. As I said earlier, black people may dominate the game of basketball, but the business of basketball is ran by a white majority. So with all that being said, is AAU ruining American basketball? My answer, no, it's not. Look, basketball is more popular than ever, and you can't deny the economic opportunity that the AAU circuit has provided. Up until the 80s, for most people, basketball was just a game. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar business that provides jobs for many different people: coaches, skills trainers, agents, team directors, and of course, professional athletes, and many more. Like it or not, many kids are getting athletic scholarships due to being seen on the AAU circuit. And according to the NCAA, 77% of all black athletes are receiving their degrees, as well as 87% of all college athletes overall. Both are at an all-time high. And even though this is a critique of the AAU, it would be wrong of me to go without saying that there are many great AAU coaches out there that really care about their players and at every turn do what's best for them. And that's in both white AAU and black AAU. And it's providing a lot of opportunities for many young people and their families. Now, there is a dark and corrupt side to the business that I think preys on impoverished people. Even though I think you're a trash parent for pushing your kid to be the financial ticket for the rest of your family, I understand it. I get it. Times are tough. I think you're gambling in a game that is not rigged in your favor, but I get it. The system needs to be cleaned up, absolutely, but until that point, I do believe black people need to be educated on the inner workings of AAU, which is why I make videos like this. Look, just like the anthropology days, the game is rigged. The shoe companies are playing with house money. The AAU is playing with house money. And the NCAA is playing with house money. The people that are taking all the risk in this business are the players. But, again, this is a conversation piece. Let me know what you think down in the comments section. Do you agree with me, disagree with me? You think I'm stupid? You want to call me names? I don't care. I just want to get the conversation going. So let me know what you think down in the comments section. And be prepared for our next video where we're going to be attacking another polarizing topic, which is Colin Kaepernick. Again, like it if you like it. Subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you next time. Peace. Thank you.